Well, I can hardly believe we're wrapping up week 3 of the 2024 Every Bit Counts Challenge. It has been a whirlwind of a week. I have been crazy busy, had a few challenges along the way, but I did manage to get several things on my big wish list for the month done. So I'm thrilled about that. So come along with me and I'll show you what I've gotten done. Welcome to Grow and Preserve. I'm Carter and I'm so glad you're here today. Let's just jump right in and take a look. We're going to kick off the week with one of my most used recipes. Last year I did 3 rounds of this. I think the year before I did 3 rounds of this. So it is something that I go through like crazy. I'm down to 2 pints left. So it is urgent that I get moving on this. I call this roasted tomatoes, onions, and garlic because that's what it is. The Ball Blue Book calls it roasted Roma tomatoes. So they just left the other poor guys off of the title, but they are in the recipe. So I end up using the ingredients and the quantities from the Ball Blue Book recipe. I just find that their method for preparing everything is quite cumbersome and much more time consuming than my method. So I get everything roasted much quicker than they seem to get things roasted. So let me tell you what I'm doing. I have 12 pounds of Roma tomatoes, 4 bulbs of garlic, 1.5 cups of chopped onion, and I am going to get all of those on pans and I'm going to rotate them through the oven and I'm just going to get everything roasted. Those skins on the tomatoes will blister up and then they'll make it extremely easy to peel. So I end up with 3 trays of tomatoes and then 1 tray that is about half garlic and half onion. And we'll just keep rotating through these and get everything roasted now. So the way the book wants you to do it is to put these tomatoes in whole, roast them, put them in a paper bag, wait till the skins slip off, then cut the roasted tomatoes in half, pull out the core and de-seed them, and then chop them. So I don't know, that sounded really cumbersome to me. So my way seems to be, I don't know, it works for me. I think it'll work for you too. It's a lot faster. So I do have a full video on doing this and I'll put a link up to that above and you'll get all these quantities and things again. But anyway, I find this to be such a useful thing to have on my shelf because it takes care of the tomato, the onion, and the garlic. I mean, that's it. I've got 3 of my ingredients all there in a single jar and I just dump it into whatever it is I need because if I'm going to use tomatoes, more than likely I'm using onions and garlic as well. So this is a real time saver for me. I just love it. I think you'll love it too. So I'm going to get everything into the pan and then we're going to put that on the stove and bring it up to a boil and we're going to let that go for about 15-20 minutes. So you can see the consistency here. I have some good chunks. If I pour this into a bowl of a pot of pasta sauce, you're going to know that there are tomatoes, onions, and garlic there. And that's really what I like. So this is a water bath recipe. I'm going to go ahead and add my tablespoon of lemon juice to everything. Fill this up to a 1/2 inch headspace. And then these do, if you're going to use a water bath, these do go for quite a while. The book calls for 1 hour and 25 minutes for quarts. I have always done 1 hour and 20 minutes for pints. A quart is just too big of a quantity for me. So pints are what I use in 1 hour and 20 minutes. Now I have pressure canned these and I don't actually have the information in front of me on how long I pressure can them. But there is a recipe for stewed tomatoes that is a pressure canning recipe. I'll have to see if I can look that up and find out the time that I use for that. So I'm going to get 8 pints of these done. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get those skins that I pulled off the tomatoes. I'm going to get those laid out on a freeze dryer tray and get that in the freezer to go ahead and pre-freeze until I have an extra slot available in the freeze dryer. And then I'll get those dried up and ready to go. So this was one of those weeks where I had to spend a couple of days out of town. So I went to Atlanta, and I think I mentioned maybe in week 1 that my Costco no longer had the big bags of peeled organic garlic. So I picked some up while I was in Atlanta, and I'll tell you a funny story. I went one evening because I wanted to be able to leave as soon as I got up the next morning. Didn't want to go ahead and drive back in the dark, but I wanted to have everything ready to go. So I went to Costco. I got actually 2 bags of garlic and a pair of pants, because that's how it goes when you go to Costco. So I'm driving back to my hotel, and I have a big refrigerator there, so everything's just fine. By the time I got back to the hotel, my whole car smelled like garlic. And I mean, we're talking like 2 miles. So I had to take these 2 bags of garlic and my Costco pants, walk through the lobby, and I felt like, oh, who is it on Charlie Brown? He's got Pigpen, is it Pigpen with the blanket and you see the stink wafted off? Well, that's kind of how I felt as I walked through the lobby, and people were staring at me, wondering why there was garlic floating through the lobby. Anyway, I did manage to get it upstairs in the refrigerator without incident. No one rode on the elevator with me though. And it made it back in the car just fine the next day. So 4 hours in the car with garlic, and let me tell you, everything smelled like garlic. But now it's time to get it preserved. And just to show you exactly how tired I am at this point, I completely forgot to turn on the camera when I did the first bag. So the first bag I went ahead and did for basically garlic pucks, right? You've seen people do those plenty of times, but I did it in the food processor with just enough extra virgin olive oil to help it hold together. And then I used some little punch out ice cube trays for that. So I have an entire bag's worth of garlic in the freezer now already. So now I'm remembering to turn it on, and I want to get some garlic powder going. So I'm going to get the rest of this bag prepped and ready. And you'll see that I take off the little root piece on the garlic bulb, on the garlic clove. Not necessary, not the slightest bit necessary, but I don't know, habit, that's what I do. So I kind of want to know that when I go to put these in the blender, that I'm not going to have any, hard garlic root nubs stuck in my garlic powder. So anyway, I'm going to do that. And it's kind of the mindless work that I can handle this morning after being so tired. So this one bag makes 4 trays ready for the freeze dryer, and my freeze dryer holds 5 trays. And I'm wondering, what on earth can I do for the 5th tray? Completely forgetting that I have that whole tray of tomato skins in the freezer from before I left to go down to Atlanta. So anyway, what I ended up with was some hot peppers from last year. So I'm going to go ahead and get those freeze dried with this as well. Then the next thing I want to do is take care of the tomatoes that ripened while I was out of town, but I just don't have the bandwidth today to do another big tomato project. So I'm going to see how many I have and then start packaging them up into 2 and 3 pound bags for the freezer so that they'll be ready for me whenever I have the time, energy, and creativity to do something with them. So now that I've had a good night's sleep, let's get some peppers tackled. I have 3 hot banana pepper plants in my garden that are so prolific. It is just crazy. And these peppers are absolutely gigantic. The variety is called Blazing Banana. These are just nuts. 3 plants, would normally be just the perfect amount for me, but these things just keep coming. So I'm going to try to take care of a couple of these in a different way today. Normally I would pickle them, but I have a lot of pickled banana peppers at the moment, and I've already done a couple more rounds this season. So I thought, well, let's see if we can come up with something different. So David has been so enamored with the jalapeno poppers. I thought, well, let's try stuffing these. So I had a package of sausage in the freezer. It had probably been there for 6 months or so. It was time to do something with it. So I thought, well, okay, I'm going to stuff these and freeze them as meal prep. And then when it's time to serve them, I'll shred some cheese on top and bake them. So I'm going to get as many of these stuffed with sausage as I can. We'll just go until I run out of sausage. And then I also will be doing some more jalapeno poppers today. So David's pretty excited about that. So I'm thinking as I'm doing this, this is feeling like dinner tonight. Save myself a step. So I went ahead and pulled some out for dinner, and we'll be making those shortly, and I'll show you how those turned out. I'm also going to try to get some more jalapeno poppers done. Now, as you may remember from last time I did these in a video, I used goat cheese in mine instead of, I think most people normally use cream cheese, maybe a mix of cream cheese and some type of cheddar cheese or something like that. But I just use goat cheese because that works for me. David is very excited about jalapeno poppers coming up, and even more excited when I told him he was probably going to get some for dinner. So this is something you've seen me do before. I'm sure you've done it many times. We have been through, I think I've done this maybe 2 or 3 times now, and we're going through them, and they are so easy, and they taste to me just like I made them fresh when I pull them out of the freezer and I pop them in the oven, and it takes, maybe 15 to 18 minutes. And they're just great. They're super easy. Now I will say, if you're going to cook yours in the air fryer or in a convection oven or whatever, you might want to go ahead and put some toothpicks in to hold that bacon in place before you freeze it, because it flat out will fly around. So I learned that the hard way. So now I do mine in the oven, and it works out just fine. But a toothpick is not a bad idea, but do watch out then when you go to vacuum seal the bags that you don't end up poking holes in your bag. So a strategically placed toothpick may be quite helpful to you. So I'm just going to get these ready to go, and we're going to go ahead and flash freeze them after I wrap them in bacon, and I'm going to pull some out to have with tonight's dinner. All right, so I didn't have enough bacon left to have a real popper, but I did put some cream cheese in the leftover jalapeno, so we'll have that with our dinner as well. And I have a big, beautiful tomato from the garden, if I can stop eating it long enough to get it on the plate. So here's how we're turning out. I got everything. I did a kind of a quick bake on these, and then I'm going to put some, I think that this is Monterey Jack. It's a goat's milk Monterey Jack I'm going to put on the top and stick it back in, let that melt. And I know this is kind of a funny looking dinner perhaps, but it was delicious. And so I had my vegetables, my cheese, my meat. It was terrific. It was my kind of dinner, nice and easy, and most of it came out of the garden. Okay, first I want to just wrap up yesterday's project with the peppers. So I'm going to get those into some small bags for the freezer and vacuum seal them. I'm going to do, I think 5 jalapeno poppers in a bag is the number that works well for us. So that's what I'm going to do. And it's just quick and easy, and in they go. Okay, so now the garlic and hot peppers are done in the freeze dryer. In fact, they were probably done, I don't know, 20 hours ago or so, but life got busy and I had to put them on an extended dry cycle. So here we go. We're going to get them taken care of. Now, this is my first time having a freeze dryer in harvest season. And yes, I realize that I did get the garlic from Costco, so I didn't exactly harvest this. But anyway, this is my first time freeze drying garlic to turn it into garlic powder. And I will say that the normal garlic powder that I use is really garlic, I don't know, what do you call it? Granules? I don't know. Anyway, it's not this powdery. And having garlic powder that is this powdery, I found the first time I used it that it burned really pretty readily, whereas the other has a little more staying power in the oven. So I'm not sure I will go for the powder again. So if you have some way that you turn your garlic into something that's not quite a fine powder that works well for you, garlic granule, I don't even know what you would call it, but anyway, that's what I'm looking for, and I would love some suggestions on that. So I ended up with almost 2 full pints of this, and then those peppers, the hot peppers that I did from last year's garden, I'm turning those into a pepper powder that I think I will use as a seasoning for cooking. So I'm kind of excited to have those, blended them up, they turn into this beautiful kind of orange color. And I think that's going to be one of my favorite ways to use the hot peppers that I run through the freeze dryer. And now that my freeze dryer trays are free again, let's get some herbs going because herbs just keep coming in the garden. So I'm trying very hard to stay ahead of it. So I have basil, I have oregano, thyme, and sage in this batch. And herbs don't take very long. So I'm hoping to get through a couple of batches of these because I still have so much more basil that needs to be cut out in the garden. Next up on my wish list for preservation projects this month was oven roasted herb confit tomatoes from the Hands On Home. Now, I did this last year as well, and we just love them. The flavor in these is just so delicious, and I use them again as meal prep. And I will end up packaging these in vacuum sealed packages for the freezer and kind of single serving or meal size serving packages for us. They're just delicious. Once I get them out of the oven, it is a battle to get them into the freezer without eating as many as I want because they're just absolutely delicious. So take as many tomatoes as you want. You can take out the seeds and stuff. I tend to take out the seeds on these, and I enjoy that, but leaving the seeds in is absolutely fine if you'd rather do that. But slice them in half. We're going to put them in the oven, a little bit of olive oil. We're going to end up seasoning these with some herbs and some salt, and then throwing some garlic cloves in with them, roasting them at 250 degrees. I don't know that that's technically a roast, but 250 degrees. And the book says anywhere from 3 to 7 hours. Well, I find it's more like 7 to 9 hours. But I will tell you, don't get antsy like I do. I ended up pushing the limit of when I really wanted to go to bed. So I cranked the heat up just a little bit, and my tomatoes ended up a little darker than I normally like them to be. So get these in the oven early enough in the day so that you don't have to try to push it at night, and go ahead and keep it at 250 degrees until they are done to your liking. And that your liking is whatever you want it to be. If you want them just kind of melty and squishy, that's fine. If you want them a little more leathery, a little more dried with a more intense flavor, that's absolutely fine too. We're not canning these. We're not doing anything other than packaging them up for the freezer or eating as many as you want while you're standing there. They're just delicious. Okay, those freeze-dried herbs are done. Now you'll see I'm going to put the basil in just a vacuum seal bag. This is not normally what I would do, but I have a gigantic jar of basil in my pantry. I am out of Mylar bags upstairs, so rather than just start a new jar, I'm just going to put it in the vacuum seal bag and toss it in the pantry. And when my Mylar bags come, I can go ahead and move it over if I want to. So that's super easy. I'm going to put the rest in jars because I'm not overloaded with them like I am with basil. Now this last one I'm doing is summer savory. I have never used summer savory before. I specifically remember buying the seeds because I wanted to do some particular recipe I had seen. Well, I have since forgotten what the recipe is, completely lost track of any notes I may have had, and I have tons of summer savory and no idea what to do with it. So if this is an herb that you love to use, please give me some ideas because I have no idea what to do with this. So I will eventually do some Googling, but I bet you guys can help me out and come up with some better ideas than Google can. Now on to another high priority item for me this August. This is right along the same lines with the meal prep that we've been doing before for the freezer. And I did last year in individual vacuum sealed bags, sliced onions and peppers. And I know this is like not a novel idea, right? But I've always had my peppers in one bag, my onions in one bag, and I just open and close, open and close. Well, having them all already packaged in what I need to make a meal has just, I don't know, it's made it so much easier. It's right there, it's easy. I remember them more often than I would remember, to go get the bag out of the big freezer because it was too big for my indoor freezer kind of thing. So, I don't know. Seems pretty simple, but to me, it just works so well. So this has been a high priority for me. I've been waiting for some sweet peppers, and you'll see I have mostly sweet peppers here. I have a few that have turned red. I have a lot of them that are green. I really prefer the red ones. I don't mind a few green ones, but I really prefer the red ones, the yellow ones, the orange ones, as opposed to the green ones. But I have to get done what I have to get done. And I have a few leftover jalapenos that I'm going to go ahead and use in this as well to give it a little bit of heat, but I don't want this to be a hot pepper and onion package. It's mostly sweet peppers. And I'll use it in, well, shoot, anything. Any kind of an egg scramble. I'll use it in fajitas. I'll use it, with some meat. I use it for tacos. I use it with the potatoes, any kind of a hash. I use it all the time. Like I mentioned, with the jars of roasted tomatoes, onions, and garlic, that's 3 products in one. Well, this to me is 2 products in one. It's like already most of the work is done for me, just a piece of cake. So I really enjoy having it. So I'm going to mix all these up, and then I'm going to lay them out on a cookie sheet that I can put in the freezer to flash freeze so that everything doesn't get completely squished when I go to vacuum seal. So I ended up with several bags, and this is just great. Now, as we get later into the season, I will have many more sweet peppers. Those always come in, dead last for me. So this is what I'll be doing with a great deal of my sweet peppers as they come in, probably more so next month than this month. All right, one final project for the week that I'm doing because I messed up my plans here. You see, I have some cilantro that I had bought at the store because I was going to do some fermented pico de gallo. But the recipe I use for fermented pico de gallo calls for a lot of sweet peppers, and I like to use multicolored tomatoes and things. Well, I had already used up everything I had that was intended to wait for the fermented pico de gallo. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get the cilantro in the freeze dryer so that it doesn't die in the meantime, and I'll still be able to use it for the ferment. So back out to the garden I went, and I picked an entire bucket full of basil. So I ended up with 3 trays of basil, the most of the tray for cilantro, and then, ding dong, I remembered that I had those tomato skins in the freezer. And yet again, I remembered something else. I don't know if you remember from, I think it was week 1, or I don't even remember when it was, but I had some pulp left from the hot sauce that I made from the Sugar Rush peach peppers. So I took that pulp and I laid it out flat and I stuck it in the freezer. So I'm going to add that to the freeze dryer trays, and then I'll grind it up and add that to the pepper powder that I made earlier this week. So that wraps it up for me this week. I'm excited about week 4 coming up. I have several things on my list I'm hoping to get done. So let's hope for a calmer, smoother, more productive week next week. So thank you so much for being here with me, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.